Hi, my name is Michael Chikeen. The smartest people I've met have one common belief, that us silly humans really don't know much. For example, we still don't know why planes stay in the air, or how Tylenol or even gravity works. Yeah, gravity. Look it up. In today's distracted, clickbait, misinformation age, I wish we could all be less certain, more humble, and a lot more curious. Admittedly, I've been known to struggle with all three. So no more, no less, this show is my attempt to be that change. Thanks for joining me, and here we go. Hi everybody, welcome back to No More, No Less. I'm still your host, Michael Chikeen, and here in the virtual studio with me, I have a good buddy of mine, Kevin Cahill. He is a father and a worker, and that's all I'm allowed to identify him as doing. And so today we are going to have an episode called Mike and Kevin Looking for the Funny, Volume 1, where we just riff and have a good time. And this will be the least serious episode of my now 41 episodes. And so let's see how this disaster happens in real time. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. I'm so happy to be here. As a father and a worker, it's a real pleasure.
And so for all you out there, you should know that Kevin and I met doing improv here in Barcelona a long time ago now, like 9 years. No public math. In 2016, we met, maybe 2015, and he's in the Barcelona improv group and does a show once every week or two. Should I restart that? Should I have not identified you?
You're fine.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
And they do a show once every other week that I never go to, but I hear it's great. I hear it's really good fun, and everyone.
We appreciate your support. It's so lovely.
Right? It's in spirit. It really is in spirit. It's definitely not a physical presence. No monetary. No, that's it.
No, you have given us no meaningful support. But
right.
Yeah.
No argument. So I want to start with one thing you said before this call, and it's gonna be ridiculous from the beginning. I would like you to tell our listeners why your dad can't pass a funeral home without going in.
Well, if I knew that, Mike, I would probably have a significantly better relationship with my dad. It's not that it's horrible, not that it's a bad relationship. It would just be better if I knew the answer to that question. Yeah, I don't know why, but I think it's the social element of it. And I think maybe there's also an element of wanting to make sure people go to his funeral. I don't know. I mean, these are all just guesses, but ultimately, yeah.
He goes to funerals of people he knows, or he passes a funeral home and walks in to a
No, it's not a stranger's funeral. No, not a stranger's funeral, but anyone who is just remotely adjacent, right? So ultimately, if so his next door neighbor growing up, like if his next door neighbor growing up's brother dies, he's there. Like he's at the funeral. It does not have to be somebody that he knows well. It doesn't have to be somebody that had a meaning in his life. He is it's actually a great quality. He is showing up for to support the person that he does know, even if it's a funeral for someone he doesn't. And it has always been this way. And it could also be just an Irish Catholic thing. Funerals they're significant. Like they're a show. They're just you go in, there's lots of music, there's the wake, so there are all these different elements of the funeral that it's a couple day affair.
Well,
social event.
One, yeah, I think your dad is starving for social engagement. I think that's what it is. I think you can invite him to anything, and I think he'd show up. If you're going to funerals. And the second was, I'd like to know why they call it the wake, because it seems like it's sarcasm. And I think like someone who came up with it, they're like, let's just call it the awakening. And they laughed and they're like, let's call it the wake, and no one will ask questions.
How could it be awake? His eyes are closed. It's no. Yeah, I think That's exactly right. I think there's I do not know the answer to that question either. As anybody who listened to your introduction could tell, I am an expert on nothing.
Right. You're a father and you are a worker. And
Right.
probably, as most parents know, they are not an expert on their children.
No one can be an expert on parenting, and working. I don't know. I mean, it's just a generic category.
Here's
You
my
can't-
TED Talk on working. Most people don't like it, and we would prefer to do less. Thank you and good night.
Yes, working is something that you have to do to trade time for money, so that your loved ones and you don't starve. That's basically where we've gotten to with working.
Okay. So we've established that you're definitely not an expert on any of these things. I think
No,
you're
I'm
making
not.
it even clearer as we move on.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I have been to some funerals though, and all the eyes are closed. So I can just tell you based on anecdotal experience, wake is not a great name for it.
Right. But your dad's like, I got 3 wakes this week, and I'm pumped. I haven't seen these guys for a while. Should I wear? No, I'm going to wear a darker suit. I don't want to go too bright.
He's trying to collect them all. No, he goes. I mean, there's definitely a perusing of obituaries, and we're looking at options. I think ultimately in terms of which ones are we going to hit this week, and who am I going to go and support? When can I hit the wake of one and the mass of another? I mean, it's a mix and match potentially.
I wonder if he prefers funeral homes that are in certain locations. Like one is close to a bar he likes, or like one is like really good next to a good like chicken wing outlet. He's like, you know what? I can get chicken wings with people I can meet at the event, so I can continue my social engagement. So he's getting more for his showing up. Like, hey John, I haven't seen you in 30 years. There happens to be a great chicken wing spot next door that I just found out about. Should we go try it?
No, I think, and I mean, in its deepest iteration, this is Weekend at Bernie's, right? Which I don't know if anybody knows what that is anymore. But there was a movie, Weekend at Bernie's. Are you familiar with this movie? Where Bernie dies, and there are these two guys that I guess they work for Bernie. I don't know. It's been a long time, and they walk around and they have to pretend he's alive so they can party at his house all weekend. It's a film of high moral standing.
It's a hilarious first movie. The fact that they made a sequel, I forget how that was even possible. Because like a corpse, decays quite quickly, and so
Yeah.
I'm actually after this call, that's the first thing I'm doing. Is
Well,
finding
and
out
also-
the plot of Weekend and Bernie's too.
Scientifically, I would also like to point out. So when I was 10 years old, I had a science teacher, Mrs. Sweeney, and she had a guinea pig in her classroom, and we were watching a movie. So the room was dark, and I was sitting next to the guinea pig, and the guinea pig started to convulse while I was watching the movie, and then it just went limp, and it was dead. It was immediately dead. And so I told Mrs. Sweeney that I thought something was wrong with the guinea pig, and she came over and immediately pointed out that it had passed. So I watched a guinea pig die. Great day at school. Then she took the guinea pig out of its cage, and she said, "Oh, rigor mortis is setting in. So, hey, do you guys want to feel what rigor mortis feels like?" And we all took turns touching the guinea pig and feeling that it was like a stone. I mean, it was literally like turned into a rock almost immediately because of rigor mortis. So, just to get back to Weekend at Bernie's for a second, major plot hole. Bernie is like limp the whole time. Like he's hanging off of them like a boneless chicken. And that's just not scientifically accurate, I'm here to tell you. So, again, not an expert, but I know that.
There are a couple shocking things about that whole story. I mean, the scientific accuracy, that I think is surprising, considering it came from the American school system. On top of that, was not surprising
Touché.
that a teacher within said system was telling all the students to touch this dead animal, in which we're not sure of how it died. I think again, it shows the breadth of education that you went through.
Well, it was the 80s. I'm not sure
Right.
that a teacher today would be able to get away with it.
They used that guinea pig as a doorstop for the rest of the semester.
That is also true. It was there holding the door open. It got kicked accidentally a couple of times, slid across the floor, but we always brought him back.
Good morning, Chester. Good morning. Punt.
Yeah, exactly.
There is actually a story about it, because you said this was science class, right?
Yeah, and also just to clarify, it was natural causes.
Right. We all appreciate that. Close the loop on Chester.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I was terrified to go to high school. I was going to a new high school outside of my district because the people I went to elementary school with were complete animals, and so I wanted to go to a high school with a different set of animals, and so, but I was like, what if nobody likes
Could broaden
me?
your horizons.
Yeah, right. What if? And it was one of the best decisions of my life. But like that first week or so, like I was super nervous. I knew nobody, and I ended up in this science class sitting beside this guy Alex D'Alberto, and for the first month, until the teacher realized the whole union that was putting us together and she separated us, and then she actually put him in a different classroom at some point, because him and I just couldn't be stopped. Like he was on the other side of the room and we were doing bits, and so like at one point he was doing this noise. So people who can see me, I'm hitting my index finger. You've seen this on my cheek and making a water droplet sound.
That's very
And
impressive.
I can do it decently, but no, that's just helpful.
I got nothing. I got nothing.
And so, but he did it. It was so good, and I felt like he could even throw it to certain parts in the room, that when the teacher had her back turned, he would do it. And we had a number of sinks in the room because it was a science lab, and so she always thought it was one of these sinks. And so after a while, she would go around tightening all the knobs. And then he would stop it until like the next class and do it again. But like I couldn't breathe during this time. Like he's doing this noise and I'm doubled over because I'm the only one that knows that it's him. And then I think she finally found out, and that's when we like, okay, this kid's got to get the fuck out of my class because he's a complete nightmare.
So did she discover it because you were laughing?
I can't recall. It was so long. I was 13. I can't recall because I remember just laughing as hard as possible, and she didn't find out for weeks. So I can't remember if it was me or she just finally caught him doing the sound.
Like actually saw him. Yeah.
Yeah. And it took me months to learn how to do that, to be honest, because I was so like I was more interested in learning that sound than anything that was on that blackboard.
Typical high school education.
Yeah. Actually, another faking out a teacher story, and we'll see if you have any. There was a guy in my senior year of high school, and this guy, you could tell he's from the era when they hired anybody as a teacher. Like someone just walked off the street who had shoes and pants on, and they're like, "We got a business class if you want to teach it in 20 minutes." And so this guy,
somebody's got to watch these kids.
Yeah. This guy was a little bit brain dead. He's teaching like a senior class that helped us get into university on business administration or whatever. And someone wheeled in the TV, but as they wheeled in the TV, the person took the remote control. So you could operate it from the TV set itself to like get a movie going with a VHS tape or whatever the fuck it was at that time. But someone had the control so they could fuck with the like reception contrast from their seat. And so they would mess with it so it would be all blurry. And then the teacher would try to fix it. And they kept doing it so that any time the teacher got closer to the TV with his head, they would fix the picture. So he at one point became convinced that if he had his head almost touching the television, like leaning up against it, So he stood there for 30 minutes as we watched this TV show. And this teacher, who was like pushing 60, is almost leaning headfirst against this TV for our benefit.
Wait, how was that rigged? So was a person controlling it from the classroom so that as the person's head got closer to it, they were making it work? That's how it was. That's what was happening.
So
as he leaned in, they were like, correct the picture. And
right, and so any human with a functioning brain would realize that there's nothing in his skull that could make this TV work. But this guy was the dumbest of the dumbest people you've met.
Well, but it could just be, it's the spot. Like if I get my head in the right spot,
Go on.
I don't know. I mean, this was an era. I mean, let's remember, this was not digital, right? This was an analog era where it was like you had the rabbit ears on the television, and so it was about getting just the right spot. So I'm a little sympathetic to this guy because ultimately, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe not the brightest mind in 2023, but at that time, where you're trying to fix those rabbit ears and you're looking for the exact spot that gives you the best reception. I think, I can see how he thought leaning his head against it might help.
So you're thinking, okay, because remember now, we're watching a video recording. Like we're not getting cable, right? So you're thinking that he thinks that he has so many metal fillings in his teeth that perhaps the combination of teeth fillings and whatever wire is from the VHS recorder to the TV is a magical combination that helps me educate these students with this video.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, so if you talk to a person now who was alive when there was only radio, I think the technology, it's almost like, how when you're a teenager, like that's the music that sticks with you for the rest of your life. For some people, it's the Beatles. For other people, not really. So it's like at that period in time, that's when you're absorbing all the information. So it's like you get stuck in a moment in time. And I think to some degree, for some people, that happens with technology too. So it doesn't matter if it's an HDMI cable or a VHS machine or what. This guy might have just been stuck in its reception, its rabbit ears. Like this is what it's about, right? So I mean, look, I'm just trying to. I don't know him, but I'm just trying to defend the guy. I mean,
did you have any really terrible teachers growing up? Because I think they're a little bit better now. Hopefully, I'm probably wrong, but is there any real dum-dums that taught you when you were coming up? I had a guy that threw dictionaries at us in grade 6.
Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't have anybody throw books at me, but I was also not like a prankster per se, so I wasn't garnering that type of attention from the teachers typically. But I did have circumstances where it was like immediately apparent to me that it seemed like I was learning the wrong thing from the wrong person. So, I did get taught sex education from a woman named Sister Thomas More, who was she was probably around 80, I'm guessing. She was definitely like late 70s, early 80s. So, I mean, even at a young age, I was probably 9 or 10, I guess. I can't remember really, but probably around then. I remember thinking, this just doesn't seem like the right person for this job. Like, I'm not sure I'm going to get the information that I need in this classroom to move forward with my sexual existence. It just didn't seem right.
It does make me laugh that these Catholic schools used to have people like that teaching sex ed.
Well, it's because you have to learn what's a sin, right? I mean, if you don't know what's a sin, you're just going to go out and do anything.
You can't avoid it.
Right. Exactly. That's a big part of
Right.
education.
Which is hilarious because if you keep teaching us what the sins are, then you realize like, oh, I clearly have to go and do those things. Like
Yeah,
those are the things
exactly.
that seem
That's
like they're the most fun.
right. It's like, wait, I'm not supposed to do that? Let's just find out for myself. I'll just find out for myself. Thank you
Right.
very much. Yeah, totally.
I would like to speak to someone who who turned a younger nun, like who was just walking around Rome, and there's like a 24-year-old nun who like is really pretty in her habit, and this guy put in a lot of effort, and one day she's like, you know what? Before I get real serious about this God thing, I need to get this done. I need to know what these sins of the flesh are like, so then I can know what to avoid forever. I want to get someone on the podcast that can tell me that story.
I bet that there are a lot of people who were, going the religious route who thought, I need to understand the sins of the flesh so that I can be, better at communicating with people who are experiencing them all the time. Like there was some kind of
Right.
mental rationalization that happened that was like, I need to be a sinner so I can relate to the sinners.
Well, hey, listen. I think you as an Irish American, and me as an Italian Canadian, I think we can agree that the Catholics are the best at compartmentalizing. That they're
Yeah.
like, well, I'll take this part of the religion that I like, and the rest of it, I'll confess later. It's fine.
Well, confession is, and it's kind of brilliant, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they give
it's
you
a
the
good
list
pull.
of sins. You got to have something to say. Otherwise, what are you going in there for?
Right.
Right? I mean, you got to have some sins under your belt. Otherwise, you're just going in to say hi to the priest. I don't know. I mean, does he need that? He's got a
Right.
big
I
social
would
circle.
I would say so. I would say
Yeah.
he likes it. But I wonder if the people that say like, listen, I need to be an expert on this sin, I wonder if they keep pushing that rationale, and they're like, you know what? I wonder what this anal's about. I think
Oh,
if someone has to if I get someone about parishioner that comes to me, and they're like, listen, I just tried this with my girlfriend or boyfriend, I should know what it's like. And then they go back to their secret person, and they're like, have you ever tried anal before? And he's like, well, let's give this a go.
but I just found a loophole in this whole thing, which is that if you're out there, the sinner becomes too relatable if you experience all the sins. It's really, really important to maintain that ability to judge someone from the outside and really, cast a stone ultimately, right? Like to be able to be like, no,
Right.
you're a sinner. Like, I know because I'm pure, right? So,
So you're saying a good nun would ride somebody, but would never do reverse cowgirl.
a good nun. Sure.
Right. Gotcha. You can't have too much fun. You can't really like. You just have to like like the well, as she would prefer the Trinity. It would be one of the three main positions, and there's no deviating from outside of those three.
Right. I mean, if it's missionary, you can say you've been on a mission trip.
Genius. Yeah. Really genius. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, in that sense, you're really, it's service.
Right. And honestly, who doesn't like dogs? Who doesn't like puppies? So she's like, you know what? I've been. I don't have a good sentence for this. I'm not gonna try. You know what I'm trying to say. And the
Yeah.
other one was, I got a ride home last night. I was just I was in a car. I was riding with a friend, and then so you don't have to lie, but you're not totally telling the truth.
Boy. Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely tricky territory. Like
Well,
when
it's
you're going,
Catholicism at its best, I'd say.
yeah,
Like,
that
I
is
mean,
true
this lady just
compartmentalization. Yeah,
this lady just tied someone's left hand behind their back to teach them how to write with their right hand. Like I don't think any sort of impropriety is offside
That's-
here.
that is true. If you, I mean, think about that. That, I mean, I am left-handed,
Yeah.
So that would have been me. Like I was
Same
fortunate
here.
to have been born after that era, but I would have been in school with my hand tied behind my back, thinking, I was born with two original sins.
I know at least 3 people that had that experience in school, like
And
older
how are
relatives.
they today?
Well, what level or what metric are we using here?
Are they? Well, that's a great question. Just your own sense of whether or not a person is okay, I guess.
Mm, hold on, I'm
So
trying to think
on
if I remember.
Mike's scale of totally screwed as a human being to making their
Total,
way through planet Earth
yeah,
and on a good ride,
totally
what's
screwed. Zero of them. I think some of them,
okay?
if the ones I'm thinking of are correct, I can't even remember if I'm remembering the right people for these stories because there are just you know so many Catholics in my life growing up that I'm sure I've heard these stories and I've just forgot how many people have them. But the ones I remember, I'm sure they're as emotionally repressed as most people that age would probably be. so they're
So
probably
you're
like,
saying the left-handedness and the hand tied behind the back didn't add to the problem?
no, I think it was just a series of things that are like, well, that's just how it was.
Right.
Like,
It's just lumped into this big overall category of that's how it was.
right, yeah, yeah. There was
Yeah.
no, there's those nuns. A ruler in the back of the head every now and then does you good.
Yeah, that is actually that's true. They have that bucket. That's just the way it was those days. There were- they have that bucket to put things in. It's
Oh God.
yeah, we just had to hold our head to the television to get reception. That's just the way it was.
I wish I remembered that moron's name. I hated it. That guy almost stopped me. That guy stopped me from getting my scholarship to university.
He's wait, so you were getting it and he was like,
Yeah,
"No, I
he
will
he,
not
he
allow
gave me
this to
he gave
happen."
me a
Too
lower
serious?
grade. Yeah, he gave me a lower grade on my final than I actually got because the guy really didn't like me, and so my average was like one no half a percentage point for all of my senior classes. The average was half a percentage point lower because of his grade, and so I didn't get the volunteer scholarship I was supposed to get.
And he knew that's what he was doing.
I no, he was just trying to be a dick for that specific class. But I went to him afterwards, and I'm like, listen, you have this grade wrong. Here's all the proof, and I'm not gonna get the scholarship. And he just wouldn't budge.
And so what was the class and was this like an essay or was it like math where there's a right or a wrong
No,
answer?
it was a series of essays. And listen, in his defense, I was a nightmare in that class.
Oh.
Like I
Now it's coming out. Now
and
we hear the truth.
right, and
This
maybe
this
that
guy
maybe
was a moron or you
hold on.
caused him to be a moron.
Well, I don't. I think both can be true.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And actually, maybe not a nightmare, but I was often quite disturbative.
Disruptive?
Disruptive.
Are you thinking disruptive? Is that what you're trying to? Disturbative is
sounded terrible
interesting.
the whole way it came out. Yeah, yeah.
Disturbative. I was just
I was quite disruptive, and for the main project that was
or
like
for those
20%.
or for the intellectuals out there listening, disturbative.
right, right.
Go on.
The main project I had because I had three classes during the day. I had a night class to take an extra course in history. I was on student council and I had a part-time job. So I had everything going on that year. And so
Overachiever much?
I kind of had to. I was worried about not getting into school, so I took an extra class just in case I fucked one of them up.
Oh, so this was like a safety net. You're
yeah.
extra class.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for that main project, I totally just took someone's from the year before, a girl that I knew, and I literally had her same drawing and presentation, and I just read the presentation on the back of it when I presented. And there was one guy, a friend of mine, who knew I was doing it, and he was just peppering me with questions, and I'd be like, "Well, let me explain how that happened to the United Nations in 1947," and I would just be looking through the essay on the back and being like, "It was ratified in whatever. And he would laugh, and I'd be like, I think you've asked enough questions today, Corey. Thank you for your participation. Anybody else? And I got like a 90 on that.
But this was a different assignment than the one that prevented you from getting the scholarship.
Yeah, the
same
one,
teacher?
That was same teacher. Same teacher.
I think you're proving that your disturbativeness may be what caused him to be a moron. I think there's a direct correlation.
Well, we had the TV incident as Exhibit A, so
who's to say you didn't drive him to that?
Actually, do you have any great stories of you cheating on something in any sort of scholastic environment and getting away with it? Because I have an excellent one, but I would like to hear some of yours.
I mean, I have no great feats of cheating, right? So there are for the most part, I did complete all of my assignments. There was a biology class when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist, Mike. I'm just going to go ahead and admit that now. And so biology, chemistry, I did well at physics, but biology and chemistry were gibberish to me for the most part at that time, right? When I was 14 years old, it just no interest whatsoever, really.
Right.
And I had a teacher that was not interesting to listen to in any way, shape, or form. So you know how any subject can be interesting if the teacher is interesting? Like, which might be why I enjoyed my physics class, because I had a teacher that was actually interesting to listen to and did kind of funny things and, kind of talked like a cartoon character on occasion. But the teacher I had for biology was very, very boring. So I did not really study very well or do very well in that class. And so, my great admission in terms of cheating is, I side-eyed the paper next to me. Real great story, right? I mean, it's just a side-eye. It's just like, yeah, I'm looking over here. Okay. Whatever you're putting down has got to be better than what I'm putting down, right? I mean, that's basically, you're taking a flyer that the person next to you has actually studied or maybe knows the subject like slightly more than you do. Yeah, it was 100% a Hail Mary. Pass the class.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, mine was, I have to say, I'm actually proud of this. Like, people say, listen, I'm not proud of cheating. No, this one, I'll be telling the story until I'm dead. And so it was my senior history class at night, and our teacher, I'm not going to say his name. He was a bit of a mess. He's a younger teacher. I think later he got kicked out of the profession for sleeping with one of the students. His immediate family was, I believe, either in the mob or mob adjacent. I come from a super fun place, and so this
sounds lovely.
Class. Yeah, and so this is the final exam, and as I told you, it's the same semester which I had all those other things going on. So I did as much studying as I could out of all the other things I had, and I blast through the fill in the blanks, the short answer, the multiple choice. I'm doing great, and there's 2 essay questions that account for a good chunk of the mark. The first essay question, I have fucking no idea. He gives us 4 options of things to write on. None of them even look familiar to me. I don't know that I've been in this class.
I don't even know these words.
Yeah, right. I've never seen.
Is this guy making up words
in these sentences? Like, did these things actually happen in history? Because I wasn't here for them. And the second essay question, I knew 100%. So I wrote a full second essay. I finished all the other stuff, but the middle essay, I'm just sat there in class, and I have no idea what to write. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm being honest with myself that, like, I cannot bullshit my way through this essay. I don't know where to start. I don't know what these things are. I won't get 1 mark. So
you're like going through the stages at this point. It's like,
Yeah, like I'm really fucked. Like I'm doing the math and I'm being like, I'm not going to get over 80 if I just hand this in with a 0. I can't take this L. I need to do something. Because looking back, I can't believe I had the balls to do this. I don't know where I got these big brass cojones to do this. So what I decided is that I'm going to hand out this essay without that middle essay, but I'm going to make him think that he lost it, that middle essay. So I start numbering the long scap pages 1 and 2, 3 and 4 on the back. And then I get to like page, let's say 9. And then on the next page, I just start numbering from 14. And so, which would make it a super long essay. And then I put it all together. I dog ear it. And then like I'm clearly done before everyone else, because everyone else has written 2 essays. I've only written 1. So I wait for like 6 or 7 people to hand their stuff on this desk, and I'm like,
what are you doing during this period of time? So
nothing.
I mean,
I'm pretending to review my work. I'm pretending to write stuff down. I'm laughing to myself. I'm terrified at the same time. I'm going through all the, like, I'm strategizing in my seat. And so finally, enough people have stacked up finished final exams on this person's desk, and he leaves to go to the washroom for whatever reason. And I'm like,
in the middle of a test?
Yeah, I don't know what he had to do. Maybe he had to go do a drug deal. I don't know what he was doing. And so I
one of those, school day drug deals, of course.
Right. So he leaves, and I go to the desk. I lift up half the stack, and I put my test in the middle of the stack, just in case he decides to pick it up if he's bored. I don't want to get busted like that, because that looks really bad. So I hand.
And this is dog-eared, not stapled, or paper. Is dog-eared paperclip or staple? Because this is an important.
Exactly, not stapled. Not stapled.
Did everybody else staple?
I can't recall. I don't think they did. So
okay.
I hand this in, and I walk out, and I'm like, well, we're gonna see how fucking this goes. This is a big swing here. A week or 2 goes by. The phone rings at my parents' house. I pick it up. Hello, hi Mike. This is teacher, right? Let's say his name was Frank.
Teacher A.
Right? He had a super Italian name, but let's say his name is Frank. Hey, Mike, it's Frank. And right in my mind, I'm like,
why is this guy calling himself Frank? He's my teacher. He should be saying.
Right. It's Mr. Frank. So I'm talking to Mr. Frank, and he goes, Mike, I've got some bad news for you. And I'm like, oh no, what do you mean bad news? Like I thought I knew everything on that exam. What do you mean? Like right away, I'm already fucking.
Oh, you went straight to the exam. That's like falling into the trap.
No, because it was just after the exam. So I'm like, it could be about nothing else. And I'm like, and he's like, well, that's the thing. Like I don't know how to tell you this, but like I lost one of your essays. And I'm like, what do you mean you lost it? Like I'm incredulous. Is that the word? Did I get that one right?
Indignant?
I'm indignant. I'm indignant.
I think both of us are demonstrating our lack of effort in high school at this point.
Right. I'm like
what's the word?
I'm like, what do you mean you lost it? I go, I wrote both of them. And he goes, I know. He goes, you did great on the second essay. You did really good on all the other stuff. He goes, but Mike, I've looked everywhere. I've checked my briefcase. I've checked the class. I've checked my car. And I'm like, how about your house? Is there anywhere in your house that it could be? Because like, I think that was my better essay.
Wow.
I'm taking the Ferris Bueller approach in this one. I'm like, if I get busted, it's fucking not going to be by a guy like this. I'm going all in, and if I get busted, it's going to be by taking the biggest swing of my life.
Not by a guy like that.
Exactly right. And so finally he goes, well, what do you want to do? He goes, like, you got 82, on your midterm mark. He goes, so what do you want to do? It's like, maybe I can give you like a 75. I'm like, 75? I go, I write an amazing essay and you lose it and I get in trouble for it. and he's silent. And he goes, what if I just give you like the same thing you got at midterm? What if I give you like an 83, even like a mark higher than midterm? And I go, I'm celebrating. I'm ecstatic with the way that this is going on the call. And I'm like, I guess, sure. Yeah, I guess that'd be fine. He goes, okay, are we okay? I go, yeah, okay. Thanks for calling. Thanks. I get off the phone, and I can't even celebrate because I'm so shocked that this has worked.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty phenomenal. I mean,
yeah,
that is. I guess there's no other option for the teacher, though. I mean, you kind of put, like, there's no option for him to come in and say, I think you're full of it, and
Right.
and that you have not handed in this essay. There's no way for him really to go that route.
Right. There's
It's
no.
it's
and
kind of a brilliant. I mean,
yeah.
it's evil genius,
Yeah.
is what it is, and it makes me wonder what is happening or going to happen in our friendship, because you have a mind that could do that.
Yeah. Maybe it's decayed over time. But
I don't know.
I think
It doesn't
only
really.
use-
Yeah.
I think I only use it for good.
Yeah, for the most part, you're doing better. I mean, at least as far as I know.
Yeah. No. Like,
So-
don't get me wrong. I would still do something like this in my personal life if it came down to it. But I don't think I would ever use this evil genius against somebody maliciously.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so let me ask you this question. This is a test of your
Yeah.
morals.
Yeah.
His job is on the line. He's
Yeah.
lost a couple of papers already. Okay, so he's already and the other students reported it. So, you know, the principal of the school is already looking at Mr. Arrivederci and saying, Frank, we can't have any more of these lost papers. Okay? So now,
For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see that I am dying at Mr. Arrivederci.
it's you or him. It's you or Mr. Arrivederci.
Okay. Tell me this. Are
Yeah.
we talking about the same teacher that I had?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
I go to university. I keep my mouth shut.
You're
This guy can find a new
100%.
job.
This guy's out. Mr.
We already knew that this
Mr.
guy was
Arrivederci
probably
is gonzo.
We knew this guy was probably already sleeping with a student, and that his family
Oh.
is in the mob. I have no remorse, not a trickle, not anything I've ever thought of since that day that didn't make me proud to come up with this genius idea on the spot.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I have no remorse for him either. Actually,
Yeah.
now given all the facts, I
However,
think yeah.
If it's another teacher and it's Mr. Mozzarella, and he's a lovely man, he's got a big
Or Mr.
family.
Burrata, because he's in style.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. So Mr. Burrata, he's a great man. He's a soccer coach, and unfortunately, because he's so busy with his family and soccer, he has lost a few papers. And I pull this thing, and I hear that he's going to get fired.
That's a lot to carry around.
I don't know.
And Mr. Burrata has a couple of little mozzarellas at home.
Right. Little matzo sticks.
Yeah.
I think if I can put myself in my 17, 18-year-old brain, I think maybe I would go to the principal and make the case for him, yet still maintain that I wrote the best first essay on that exam anyone's ever
Wow. So you're going in and you're saying, look, he lost my essay. I forgive him. Why can't you forgive him? Right? I mean, Mr. Burrata is the best teacher I've ever had. Do you know how dedicated this man is? He has taught me so much about Italian cuisine that I did not know before.
He comes in, he smells like marinara sauce. It makes the whole room just glow. And you're gonna just let him walk out the door. And what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? Open up a restaurant? You know what? Maybe he will. And I hope he does. And shows up. And none of you guys can eat there, you monsters.
What are Mr. Basil and Mr. Tomato going to do without Mr. Burrata?
Okay,
This school is going to fall apart.
We're getting out of hand here. We're getting out of hand.
Yeah, fair
shifting
enough.
gears. What?
By the way, indignant is the right word. It means feeling or showing anger or annoyance at what is perceived as unfair treatment. Is that
very
right?
good. Yeah, I was acting. Oh, I was acting incredulous that he could have lost my. Indignant's still the better word, just to be fair. I'm just trying to defend my word choice.
You're just trying to stick. Okay. Well, I'm not going to hold it against you. You go ahead.
Thank you. All right. What are we moving on to?
I don't know. You've got the paper.
We have aliens, friends with kids, and how non-racists are always terrified they might be racist.
Let's, you, you, you choose.
Well, the fact that you laughed so hard at that last one, I don't know that I can choose any of the other ones.
Okay.
All right. So if we start going off the rails, you can pull the chute on it. Okay. So the way I was thinking about this, it was literally on my way to the gym today, and I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Fake Doctors, Real Friends, about the Scrubs rewatch, and their producer Joelle is this lovely, creative black girl. And so she's telling the story of how she went to the Beyonce concert and how she cried through the whole thing. And Diana Ross came on and she kept crying and her voice is sore because she was yelling. And I've just heard so many people talk about Beyonce, of how they love her so much that like I've never heard. So even people that love Beyonce love her more than I think people love Taylor Swift. And I was just thinking, like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe I haven't listened to enough of her songs. And I don't have anything against Beyonce. She seems like a lovely dancer artist. I just don't get it. And so I was laughing and I'm like, I wonder how many people are like scared to say that, because like liberals or progressives, they're always like trying to be anti-racist and non-racist. And so they can't accept that like people can just have regular things that they don't get, or that there's a little prejudice that exists in everyday life or whatever. And so like they're always just so worried that they might be racist that they're like, you don't like Beyonce? Shit, maybe you're racist.
Well, if you have somebody whispering that in your ear, that's
right.
definitely not helping the circumstance.
And that whisperer is definitely a white guy.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, probably.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, so this basically, so you don't get Beyonce. It's hypothetical. This is a hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, no, I don't get it. Like with Harry Styles, for example, like he's a.
Well, I don't get Harry
guy.
Styles either.
Right, but okay, let me finish. So he's like,
yeah.
So I like, you know, girls will always have a male icon or a boy band that they're going crazy over. Ed Sheeran as well.
Sure.
You know, Taylor Swift is, maybe I've heard more of her songs, but for some reason, like the radio stations I listen to when I'm in Canada, I don't hear any Beyonce songs here. Like I haven't even been exposed to all of this Beyonce music, so I don't get, not that why she's so famous and rich and popular, because, you know, obviously she's a singing powerhouse and all that stuff, but like the amount of devotion that white girls like love her, I don't get. But what I'm realizing, maybe Spain is racist and they don't play any Beyonce songs in this country, and so I'm not properly exposed to Beyonce.
Well, I'm not going to co-sign that. just to be very upfront right away. No, yeah. But I do think, though, that, I mean, there are people that are devoted to so many things that I don't understand.
Right.
And Beyonce is so far down that list. Like, I mean, because Beyonce works her tail off. Yeah, I mean, is every song a winner? No, but that is true of every band ever.
I don't know. You sound racist to me.
Well, wait till you hear what is next. I mean, so I've got a nephew who has an extreme devotion to Weird Al Yankovic. Okay?
Right.
Weird Al Yankovic is fine, right? I mean, the guy's great at writing parody songs, and he's seeped his way into the pop culture, and he's made a lovely life for himself, I'm sure.
Right.
I don't understand devotion to Weird Al Yankovic, and it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well,
so,
that
and
one
I mean,
seems to have more sense in it than the Beyonce thing.
So you mean, wait, what do you mean? That people would have devotion to it?
I mean, being devoted to Weird Al Yankovic is a weird thing. And like, so on that level, I think maybe
But I
do
think
now
that might
understand.
also be part of the reason why people have it. Because they're happy to be in the weird category. But anyway, I interrupted you. Yeah.
Okay. I think I have to go to Beyonce concert now. I think I have to.
I do too. I think you have to do that too. I mean,
A Taylor Swift one I want to go to. Like, I actually want to go to a Taylor Swift concert.
here's the thing though. I am also not. I mean, Taylor Swift seems smart, and she writes interesting songs, but people are crazy. I mean, they're pop songs. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's like I don't feel like my artistic diet is enriched by imbibing a Taylor Swift song.
I think what I'm realizing though is that, like, so I don't ever seek out Taylor Swift songs to listen to. Literally never. But I've heard a lot of them over the years that I really like them. So I'm wondering, one, have I listened to more Beyonce songs that I'm aware of? Or people play them less, and I've been exposed to them less, so only people that seek them out really are huge fans. So the question is the Canadian Broadcasting Association, are they racist? So then I have not been hearing enough Beyonce, and now I definitely realize I'm going to Spotify her songs.
So here's another thing. We live in an age of algorithms, right? The algorithmic age.
Yeah.
I am not sure that anything that we're talking about is for us. Right? It's like we are not the demographic for these
And this
artists.
is also a great example of why, like, white dudes in their early 40s shouldn't be having podcasts. This is also like another great example of why, like, we should do this once every 6 months to remind everybody that it's not a great idea.
No, that is true. Things aren't for us anymore.
Right.
So
listen, man.
Also, I think that no one wants to hear me comment. Like, if somebody is walking down the street and looks at me, they're not thinking, I wonder what his thoughts on Taylor Swift are.
They're not looking at either of us and being like, look at those tastemakers. Just
Yes,
down the
exactly.
street.
I'm pretty sure they're just not looking. Like, I'm fairly certain. Like, they're not even getting to the part of the looking.
That's great. Yeah, I wonder if people do like the ones that are so serious about being anti-racist that, like, they're so afraid of what, like, other progressive liberals will say if everything about them isn't, like, emphasizing or enthusiastically I wonder if they really stress themselves out that they're not empathetic or anti-racist enough. Whereas, like, I just think, yeah, you're just not. Like, you're just not, and you do your best to shave off the bit of old school prejudices that maybe are still around from when you were a kid. But I do wonder if the younger generations are driving themselves nuts trying to be perfect human beings.
Well, I mean, it's a high bar, without a doubt, right?
Sure.
I mean, to ultimately take our human brains, which are kind of geared towards judgment, and try to just, like, cleanse it of all of that whatsoever. Like, I mean, our brains are kind of built to categorize things, and so it's hard not to categorize things. But I do I I do think there's probably in people that have you. It's a tough topic, Mike.
Yeah, see, you're one of those people that are so terrified.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, you know what? And this is interesting.
This is fair.
The person that convinced me that everyone is prejudiced was who was he from? It was an African guy that I worked for my second job out of university, and his name was Martin, and a lovely dude. And we got into this big argument. He's one of the like I didn't really know a lot of black people growing up. And so there was him and another guy in this company I worked for, and we got in this big debate. And he was saying like everyone's prejudiced, and I was like vehemently defending pseudo myself, being like, "Oh no, I'm not racist. I'm not," like all these things, you know. And he really was walking the line, being like, everyone has prejudices from their entire life growing up, and it doesn't mean that they're racist. We just have preconceived notions of people that sometimes we need to keep in check. It took us like 3 days of this conversation for me to finally like get it. Like he was so probably still is so much wiser than I was, and like that conversation has always stayed with me.
Well, and I think that that's fair, and I definitely don't have an issue with acknowledging that element of humanity. Like to say, okay, so we all have prejudices in our minds against whatever it is that's out there. Everybody has some of that in them. We're all making judgments, on every day based on whatever our environment is and wherever we're walking,
right?
And whatever environment we're in. I think what I struggle with in terms of fear is defending a right to be prejudiced just because it exists inside of us, right? So like the idea that, I think it's a slippery slope to be able to say, well, everybody's prejudiced. I mean, we've all got it. So, I can be a little bit racist. Why can't I be a little bit racist? Everybody's got prejudice, right? So that is a position that I think we should be pushing back against. Right. So into a zone where it's more like, yeah, okay, so these things exist inside of the human experience, like trying to categorize, groups or categorize, however you want to put it. But ultimately, if I'm trying to think about bigger picture, like what moves us forward, it's trying to be more open than that. Like, so it's like it's just like understanding that part of yourself, but not letting it control you. And I think that is ultimately that should be the goal of people, if you're asking me.
Because I agree with that. And maybe we're getting a little bit too serious here, but I agree with that. But I think the end goal that you have, I think, is impossible unless you say it's okay to be a little bit prejudiced. I think it's as in like it's normal. So, but then like we have these things where there are people that I think are probably well-intentioned people, but have never met, let's say, a non-white person or a non-whatever, that they just have these preconceived notions and prejudices. But as soon as they're confronted with the humanity of another human being that doesn't look like them, their whole argument kind of crumbles, and they just realize how empty a lot of these things were. But if we're going to vilify those people alongside the white nationalists and Nazis, I think it vilifies people that unfortunately doesn't give them a benefit of the doubt.
Well, yeah, and I definitely am for trying to acknowledge the complexity of a spectrum. Like, I don't necessarily think it's good to throw those people in with the white nationals. White nationalists, not the white nationals.
That sounds like a really bad baseball team.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but I think that our categorizing brains are not great at complexity. So I think
Right.
oftentimes, like, we tend so hard towards oversimplification that it's really hard for us to separate one thing and the other. Like, it takes a strong conscious effort. Like, you really have to look up from your phone.
Oh yeah.
Like,
That's
you
true.
have to, you
That's
really
true.
have to, like, make an effort to get out of your, automated brain state to start thinking about what it is that you're thinking about.
Right. Fair enough. All right. I think we covered that gracefully. um, I'll let you pick the last.
I'm sure
topic
the
before
internet
we
will
wrap.
judge that. No.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll see how long it is until I delete these videos from YouTube. But what do you think should be the last topic that we close out on?
What
Anything?
what are the remaining topics that you had there?
We can come up with another one. There's no dating apps as too outside your experience, and then we have friends with kids,
Excuse me
aliens.
for a minute.
Yeah,
No, I'm fine.
yeah, yeah. Because you were never part of the dating app phenomenon.
No, dating apps, or I got out of the game just before all of that happened. So I've never been swiped, and I've never swiped anyone else.
Yeah,
And I'm proud to say that.
there's definitely pros and cons, but yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. Aliens or friends with kids?
Should we go friends with kids?
Yeah, it's your choice, pal.
Let's go friends with kids.
Okay, lead the way.
Well, I mean, I feel like, look, you are not a friend with kids that we know of.
Touche.
I am your friend with kids, or I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you have other friends with kids. I don't want to put myself on a pedestal.
Plenty.
I'll just tell you from the experience of being a friend with kids, feels pretty flaky. I mean, your priorities as a parent are so clear, and and your friends without kids are. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. You're not the top priority.
Yeah, it would be weird if people think that they are.
Yeah, I think so. But I think that there are some people that think that they should be a higher priority on that list. I think you do very well in this territory. You've been very forgiving of me, which I appreciate. I want to get that on the record. Mike is a good friend with no kids. He's an understanding friend with no kids.
Yeah, and let me pile on my own praise here. That I've even offered to, because your kids are 9, 12. I get these ages wrong.
13,
constantly.
9 and 13. Yeah.
Oh shit! Right.
Well,
on.
it's because they keep changing. I mean, it's not your fault.
So they're 9 and 13, and they're two lovely boys. And I've even offered to take care of them for like a day or two and go play sports or whatever. And if your wife listens to this, you have never even considered taking me up on this offer. So I'm not sure if you are just scared to be alone with your wife, or if you are scared to have your kids alone with me.
Can it be both?
Yeah, I can.
Look, what are you doing on September 30th?
I'm not making a play date during this conversation.
All right, fair enough.
But
That's true, because you will have to be held to it if this goes public.
Yeah, but currently there are no plans. So I would happily take care of your offspring.
Okay, that's good. We're gonna get that on the books. All right. So I think you just did what you said you didn't want to do, which was commit to a play date on this podcast.
I went to the calendar and that was a mistake. I think one part for the detriment, we talked about this a touch before this call, is that women seem to be a lot better with
Yeah.
prioritizing their friends outside of the family unit. And I've been thinking of this because I've seen this with several friends. One that I don't know. Men seem to be more disconnected as they get older. You and I have agreed on that.
Yeah.
But I wonder if this is because it's a like how men are socialized that they don't feel like they can reach out and make plans and all these things, or if because men are traditionally the breadwinners and so they have less time than maybe a lot of women that either work less hours or have a less demanding job. So there's more mental RAM to think of relationships. I don't know. I tend to think it's probably how men are socialized.
I think it's probably more how men are socialized. I think, I mean, the breadwinner thing, I think, is another slippery slope. I mean, there's so like that. I mean, that's I guess true in some relationships, but it's it's absolutely not a standard, right? I mean, I don't know
Uh,
the number of families that I am in contact with there, and this is totally anecdotal, but there are way more people where both parents or families where both parents are working. Um,
right. Well, we'd have to talk about like what kind of jobs and things like that. But even
yeah, of
like in the
course, yeah,
U.S. and Canada, I would say like they say I think 40% of the breadwinners right now are women, and in Canada, all the women I know work, maybe bar a couple of them, but
but I
in Europe,
think,
I don't know if
yeah,
it's like that.
but I think more importantly, I think women carry so much more in their headspace, I think, than men typically do. I mean, and again, I don't have data to back this up, but ultimately, I do think that for the most part, uh, my wife has way more in her head related to what has to happen, who has to be where, what has to happen with things in and around school, the communication around what happens in and around school, related to birthday
Right.
parties, related to whatever. I mean, the mental load that is being carried is so much more significant. Like, I have so much less of an excuse to not have a social life ultimately because my
Interesting.
mental headspace is not it's not typically as occupied, I would say. And I think, I don't know, there is probably some kind of a gender element to that as well that I don't really understand, but
Right.
and ultimately don't want to use gender as an excuse either, because I think that's not really a fair existence. That's not like a fair way of being, um,
Right. Well,
in terms of
I would.
operating a family.
Well, yeah, I would use gender as an excuse for why men don't reach out and prioritize. Though women are so much
Yeah,
better at community, and I think men. This is a much larger topic that I'm researching, but like because I think a lot of boys are stripped of their humanity and feel like they can't feel negative emotions, they can't feel love and softness and all these things. And traditional masculinity growing up kind of fortifies these ideas. If you don't have enough men and people around you that resist this idea of traditional masculinity, so I think men have a much harder time accepting when they need community or that they don't feel like they don't feel good and that they need to be connected with their friends. And I think that's why, because if you can't identify this need in yourself, you can't go out and try to fix it. You're just going to push that emotion further down in your dungeon until you know there's a dragon trapped in that dungeon, and you just feed it all of your sadness and emotions, and then one day that dragon destroys everything and everyone around you. So I think it's yes, I do make a lot of concessions, especially now understanding that for my male friends with kids. Like I was home for a month and one of my best friends, I saw him for 2 hours one afternoon. He just had a brand new baby the month before I got home. And then I saw him one other time for a full afternoon on my birthday, and we had a great time. And like I had to squash my negative feelings that because I told him I know you're busy, so you just tell me when you're available and I'll come see you. And I only saw him those 2 times, and I know he wanted to see me. We're still very close, but I had to like think through all of these things that like he's stressed with kids. He's got two now. And he just doesn't have the mental bandwidth to reach out. So as much as I was hurt not to see him, it was pretty easy for me to run through those filters now as, as a man in his early 40s, to realize that, like, this is just how life is sometimes. And it is sad. Because I bet he wishes he reached out more as well. But I've just started, I don't want to let the, like, hurt pile up that I think a lot of men do. I think I try to give people way more grace period and realize that men have a hard time organizing stuff, getting together. And so, like, especially friends with kids that are men, I think after a certain amount of time, if I realize there's a disconnect on priority of the friendship, then I think maybe I'd be like, okay, well, maybe we've different ways. But, like, using you as an example, for example, like, you've got just so much shit on your plate. Yeah, and I realize there's a few years that when your kids are teenagers, they're not going to deal with you at all.
Well, and this is the thing.
And then we'll have so much time.
That's kind of my. This is like part of the way that I've thought about parenting is I have a finite period of time. So it's like during this finite period of time, I will always prioritize my kids because ultimately there will be a moment where they have no interest in hearing anything that I have to say or in spending any time with me whatsoever. And so that I've kind of got in the back of my head that it's like that, there will be a moment. Well, and there will be a moment where it's time to, create that distance in some way for a period of time. And if you've done your job right, hopefully they come back at some point. But ultimately, if you're doing your job right, you're creating autonomy and you're creating that distance. So that's always in the back of my head. That's like at some point, I will be, glad I made this choice to be with them or to spend time with them or to do this thing because because at some point that will end. Right. So I don't know. I mean, it's at the same time, you can't totally neglect all of your relationships and expect them all to be there. So, right. So there's obviously balance that you need to strike in relation to that. But, the other thing is that when you are coming home to people every day, I think, and I don't know, I mean, again, I think the theme of this call is I'm no expert, but anthropologically speaking, like men, you spend a lot of time alone or in a situation where if we're not quiet, we may not eat today, or I might get killed by this, wild animal or whatever it is, right? So like men, I think, had to be, alone together a lot, right? You had to be in a situation where it was like, sorry, Arf, we can't talk about our feelings today because we have to focus on killing the saber-toothed tiger. Like, that's priority number one. Our feelings are definitely second to that, right?
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there'd be a lot more like collaboration as relating to a specific goal, which explains why we do very well in escape rooms together.
Yeah, but that's very right.
But in this new world now, where like there currently are no wars, it's one of the safest times to be a human, at least in the West, in the history of humanity. We have to find a new place for men to be, and also it's what led me to think of like my future for like community and friends and who I want to have around me. But I also want to take all of my good friends with me on this journey into like, okay, well, how can we take the best stuff for what's awesome about being friends with men, but also take the awesome stuff that women have that men do not embrace. And I'm like, I'm in a bit of a process right now of figuring that out. But it's interesting because some of the stuff just runs under the hood, like people that just can't reach out or prioritize their relationships and all these things. Like it's, these are things that, over time, I hope some of my better friends really start to understand that, like, not for me, of course, I would love to see friends like you more often, but I think more for themselves to be like, let's go have fun and do something. Let's go a 2 day trip. Let's just like go somewhere and hang out and chat. Like it's I think it's better for everybody, you know?
I think there are lots of times where we have to choose the opposite of our instinct, right? I think that like when I get a moment in time where I'm gonna have the house to myself, or I'm gonna have a night alone because the family is going, I often think, I'm gonna get some quiet, right? So like often the way that my mind operates is I'm gonna get a moment of peace where whatever happens during this few hour period, I get to decide what happens. I get to decide what I eat. I get to decide what's on television. I get to decide whatever it is. Nobody's going to interrupt that process, which is a thing that
Right.
happens so rarely. Like it's so rare that you get to just make those calls about your own life on your own, right?
Right.
But that doesn't typically end up being the best night. Like what is the best night is the night where I'm actually, my family is there and I'm being with them and of service to them in some way, or hang out with them, or where I'm going and social. Like I always get more out of the socializing. So I think going out, being with people, laughing, feeling a part of, feeling seen as a human being, like the value of that fires so many more neurons than a movie, right? And I love
Right.
movies and I love media and all that stuff. And maybe you're going to a movie with a person and you're talking about it afterwards, and that's great. That still has a much higher value than me doing that activity on my own.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
and it's I don't know, it's but for whatever reason, the next time I have a night where everybody's out, my brain is probably going to think, I just get to take a beat, right? And I also think learning to be alone is a skill too, but I don't know.
I was just gonna make in the middle of your heartfelt uh, story here. I was gonna make a masturbation joke when you said I'm gonna be alone and I'm just gonna take a beat. And I was like, well, I guess we all need that too, Kev. We all need a bit of a release, and so I think you should pleasure yourself when your family's away. Good for you.
That's great. That's great advice.
Well, because
I
I was
really
trying to think
appreciate
here,
that.
like, where can we find the funny here? And you handed it to me, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Because where else? It's been really interesting to see my friends raise kids because now they're reaching like teenagers and they're getting a bit older. And so even just seeing the personality quirks in my friends that I've known for 20 years or whatever, like to see how that, for better or for worse, affects like their kids and their parenting, I've also find really interesting because I also agree with you that like there is no such thing as perfect parenting. I think like you're either you're trying and you're putting in an effort, or you're just not. But like no kid, as we both know, escapes childhood. We all have our own things. There's people are making the best use of their brains that they can, and I think the best thing we most parents can do now, like me from an outside looking in, is that like we just have so much resources available to us now as far as like learning about raising kids and researching like, oh, how do I, like, I think we just have more information out there to make it possible. So like I think the trying and the intentionality and the loving, like I think that's, to me, that seems like 95% of it. And you hope that the effort that you put in isn't too destructive in the end. Like, and so like even friends that struggle with some of their kids, like I would never judge them that like you're doing a bad job as a parent. It just seems really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fair, right? It is totally hard, and I think within hours, probably, of having my first kid, I thought, and maybe even before we even had the kid, I spoke to my partner, and we said, something along the lines of, we're going to screw this up. It's just a matter of how much, right? It's degrees to which you because you're going to pass on neuroses. We all have blind spots. We are all human beings. I mean, the number of ways that we can fool ourselves is infinite. The number of ways that we can pass on issues to the people that we love is infinite. And and I think it's really just about trying to do as much damage control as you possibly can, trying to be transparent to the degree that you possibly can, to the degree that you understand transparency yourself, and I don't know, just letting other people be who they are as opposed to trying to assign them something, which I think is another thing that can be a pitfall of parenting. It's like, no, my kid's got to be X. They need to be a doctor. They need to be a lawyer. They need to be this successful. They need to be the kid in the class that gets the A.
And that comes more from fear of your own failure or how you'll be perceived, or that you'll have to take care of them. It seems like there's a lot of built-in fear that runs that show than it does intentionality for the kid.
Well, and even just faith. I mean, nobody knows how to talk when they're born. Nobody knows how to walk when they're born. We all figure out how to run. It's very rarely that I go out to dinner with somebody and they eat like a slob. People figure these things out, right? And so if you're modeling good behavior and you're trying to give people space to kind of be who they are, that seems like a pretty good place to start. And
well, that sounds really really generous to a lot of parents who I'm sure are grateful to hear that, where they have so much pressure on their backs. And so I think that's the unfunniest topic to end on. And I think by
we were looking for the funny, Mike. Nobody said we would find it.
But I think it is funny that we can put this part as Kevin tries to tell parents how to parent. And I think that would be a really good marker for this.
That's
clip.
Funny. I think if we were looking for funny, I think we found it.
Parenting expert Kevin Cahill, expert father, gives his advice of the only way to raise kids.
There's only one way to raise children, and that's
buy a ruler and tie their hands behind their back.
Right. No lefties. It's the no lefties approach.
No. Buddy, this has been hilarious. I enjoyed this. We'll put this out into the world, and no one will listen to it, so we'll do another one at some point.
That's great.
All right.
That's why we do things, so nobody sees them.
Thank you for being here, father, worker, good friend. I love you, buddy, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Love you too, man. Thanks for the invite, and looking forward to the next one.
Yes, sir. So thanks for listening to No More, No Less. I appreciate the time you spent with me today, so please subscribe and rate the show if you enjoyed it. It'll help me create more amazing content and get that next little bit of validation that I so deeply crave. If you did enjoy it, well, that sucks. But to make sure, I think you should listen to my next 10 episodes and then decide. I mean, come on. Rome was not built in a day. I'm just getting warmed up here, guys. So thanks again. See you next time.